Hi, and welcome to our first ever virtual summit. I'm Stephanie Wade, co-founder of ChangeNerd. And this session is brought to you by ChangeNerd Learn, where you can continuously upskill your team with certification programs, next level practices, and tools with our online learning platform. And it's also brought to you by ChangeNerd Gigs, where you can hire top freelance change management professionals to supplement your current transformation efforts. To learn more, hop onto changenerd.com. Enjoy this session.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this segment. We have Melanie Franklin, who's a global change management consultant. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us during this virtual summit.
It's lovely. So it's nice to dial into Chicago from here in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. So Melanie, a lot of people know about you already, but before we get into the content, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, 30 years ago, I started as a business analyst. I became a project manager. I then became a program manager. Then I became global head of project and program management. Then I became the CEO of a training and consultancy company in the UK and the Middle East. And then in 2012, something like that, I became freelance again because my mum died and I just didn't want to be part of a big organization and leading it. I just lost my oomph. So I've been sort of freelance for the last, 7-8 years. And I work for clients who ask me to walk alongside them while they're doing a major transformation. Whether they're trying to put in a new target operating model, they also want to get cultural change right.
Yeah.
If they want to look at the strategy and work out maybe what that change should be and what it would take to deliver it, they want a change expert who can tell them the size and scale of what it is they're about to commission.
Yeah.
So all in all, that's the key stuff that I do.
Yeah. Well, over the last 12 months or so, the world has been trying to manage through COVID-19, and that has really forced a lot of organizations to move virtually, really, really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would love to get your perspective, the outside of the United States perspective, on how are you seeing organizations on the other part of the world? How are you seeing them adapt to working virtually?
Yeah, so I'm working with organisations from Australia through the Middle East into Europe and also in the US. And I'm grateful to one of my clients who, in advance of this session, wanted to put on the table straight away that we need to move from working from home to working from anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that is so important is because as soon as you put anywhere into the equation, you actually start to think about mobility.
Yep.
And that has an effect on the devices we use,
Mm-hmm.
the equipment we use, but also on the security protocols of how we do things.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a very good distinction, that we should stop talking about working from home, because that makes an assumption that people are actually in their own home,
Mm-hmm.
which might not be the case.
Mm-hmm.
When we are free to move around, I think there will be a number of people who are happy not to be in the office all of the time, but that doesn't presuppose that they're either working from the office or from their own home. So I'm really grateful for that definition because I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think that what's really been interesting, I've been advising CEOs through the last, 8 months now? COVID feels like forever.
It does.
And we started looking in March. And I think the first thing that we all did was we looked at work. And it was about, I've worked with one organisation who had 90,000 employees to work from home. So we concentrated on how to get things done, how to service customers, how to make sure that we were still bringing in revenue where possible, minimising costs, making sure that we were doing what we were paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think very closely interlinked with that, once we got over the immediate few weeks of crisis, was we started to move into a much more social perspective. How do we do the friendship thing? And I think we all saw some of the biggest trends have been, well, we've both got our backgrounds, which are normal backgrounds up, because actually putting up those sort of blue screens is a way of sort of hiding ourselves.
Yeah.
So people have, I think, started to behave slightly differently on these platforms. There has been a more openness. We're not afraid to have babies on our knee, to have our dogs or our cats come in. My father, who's 86, will often deliver a cup of tea to me during a session.
Yeah.
And people can see him walking across the room and back again.
Yeah.
And it's just being human, I think, has been something that we've seen. And I've seen this in the Middle East as well, where perhaps my clients are slightly more formal.
Yeah.
And it's been a really interesting sort of development to see that humanity. But I think we're now starting to realize we're starting to develop some of these more social things. Like next week, I've got a sort of a social gin and tonic after work with somebody who I would normally have met, maybe in a wine bar after work. We've never met before. We've got something in common. We think we're going to chat about it.
Yeah.
I would have done that in central London or maybe in New York or in Madrid, but this time I'm going to do it virtually. So I've noticed quite a few of those coming into the diary. But also I'm working with a lot of, well, in England, we're obviously stopping for tea. So you get these little messages, would you like a cup of tea? And it's almost as if we're pretending we're in the office kitchen. We're having a bit of a break. And of course, I'm seeing that with my other colleagues around the world, but it's coffee. But, being English, stop for a cup of tea and a biscuit. So I think there's been something about the social stuff that is, we are all feeling our way, but we're doing it. But what I see is there's an evolution here. Work, social. Then we're getting into personal development, because there's a recognition perhaps that, well, how on earth do we develop ourselves as this goes on for much longer? And in fact, we start to look into a world of, a lot of us will be working from anywhere other than the office for a lot longer. How do we continue to stretch me? Training. I wrote a piece recently about, based on interviews with people around the world, about how training courses have become even more impactful and essential than they ever were before. And you think, well, why is that? And that's because they stretch the brain, they enable you to have more contacts, more networking. You can benchmark your own ideas against others, but in a risk-free environment, because if you're on a course with people, then they're not your colleagues. You can speak up and you can get that sort of, well, what was called in the Financial Times last month, a really great article, which was about incidental information exchange, like we have now. I mean, we've just had a little bit of a chat about the staff engagement survey, and I found what you had to say fascinating. But it was just an aside, a little comment. But that's what we do in the office. And I think that how do we create those moments is becoming really important. We need to think. And I think organisations that are getting very good at this are already starting to look ahead and go, how do we develop staff? How do we find out what their development needs are if I'm not sat beside them watching them?
Absolutely.
And I think that leads us on to category number 4, which is we've done work, we've done social, we've done development, and now we're moving into virtual leadership. But this evolves. So we've looked at work, we've looked at social, we've started to look at personal development. And let's reassure ourselves, no one organisation has all the answers here at all.
Nobody,
But personal development, thinking about, well, how do I make development opportunities for my staff? How do I effectively coach them? How do I know when they need formal training if I'm not sat beside them in the office?
I know.
And that leads us to the final sort of section, which I think is on virtual leadership.
I agree.
We're starting to talk about it, but again, I don't think we have the answers. A couple of the CEOs that I work with most closely, we've talked about more deliberate role modelling, having to be far more explicit about demonstrating the behaviours that you want others to have. So, for example, if we want a more casual, more sociable interaction on these kinds of meetings, then can we role model that? so that if children run into the room, it doesn't matter. The CEO feels just as chilled about it as anybody else. It's taking a view and sort of standing back and going, what do I want others to feel? So I think there's something in there about there is definitely a requirement for a more deliberate, a more focused way to role model. But I also think that senior leaders, as part of virtual leadership, need to be much more explicit about what they praise and how they praise people. Because you can't be as informal as you would. I was praising somebody today for something they had achieved, and I just took the time out because we were finishing a call, and you rush off to the next one. So I just want to say, I think you've done a fantastic job, and she was about to brush off my comments because that imposter syndrome gets there, and I sort of said, no, here's the evidence. This is why I think what you've done is so very good if I compare it to other organisations. So perhaps I just took a little bit longer and was a little bit more definitive in why I thought she'd done a great job. So I think there's something about work, social, personal development, leading into virtual leadership. And I think the thread that runs through all of this really is perhaps staff engagement. And you and I were just talking earlier on about maybe the questions need to change.
Melanie, the thing is, if you look at engagement, and how it was defined, it was roughly defined between the late 50s and 80s and things of that nature. But it really correlated to the fact that companies, they want to have a productive staff, that if an employee feels engaged, you can get more productivity out of them, right? And, given our current work environment, and I use that term loosely, you have homeschool, right? We're still in the middle of a pandemic, so someone could have a loved one that's sick. And I think that I don't have all the answers, but I feel like the term engagement needs to be broadened a little bit, where we're not focused solely on the productivity of a person, but it's more holistic in the sense that, people feel productive at work or when they're working, but at the same time, it also gives insight into, their sense of wellness.
I think mental health, I certainly noticed across the globe, including the Middle East, that we can talk much more freely about mental health outcomes, that I can talk much more freely about coping mechanisms. And I think that's something that I certainly, it wasn't on the agenda 9 months ago. I wasn't talking in those terms, but now I am. And I feel completely free, and I've had no pushback in any organisation in any country on those subjects. In fact, people are hungry for understanding how can we cope better. So this is absolutely the issue.
I think the playing ground is level now. The playing ground is leveled. I mean, if you have, right, because the CEO, if they're working from home, right, and they have a family, they're facing the same pressures as a manager in their organization, right? Or a business analyst, right? You don't have the hierarchy that you have in the office where, a key executive is in their corner office and then an employee is, on the floor. No, we're all kind of facing the same challenges. And so I think we're, to your point, we're acting a lot more human. And I think there's almost a craving for understanding. How do we understand one another more? How do we connect each other? It's going to be interesting.
There's a universality, isn't there? I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, a husband, a father, a son. You are those things, whether you're the CEO or whether you're the summer intern. You are still those things. And I think that the challenges are we all have many more interruptions than we would normally have, because we get sent off course by work issues throughout the day. But I was only, thinking about this today when as I told you on this call, I've done 13 hours already today. And I sometimes do a 14-hour day because I have clients, that start in Australia and clients like you who are finishing in the States. And what's interesting is that I was sent off course a couple of times today by people who've turned up to the house. Somebody came to measure part of the garden today, whether I wanted them to or not. Another man came to install some stuff, some electrical equipment. I would not normally be involved in that. It would not normally send me off course. So I think we all have that additional pressure. I think number one, I think you're right to mention that people may have ill relatives or be ill themselves.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody today who's a very people person. He's a program director. And his partner has been told that they met somebody with COVID over the weekend. They've now got to self-isolate, the two of them, for the next 14 days. And you can see how this was playing on this guy's mind.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how we're going to get food, how we're going to cope with not seeing anybody. We're not even allowed out for a walk. And it was really playing on his mind. And one of the things we talked about is the fact that I think we're all sort of experienced nationally and personally, but we're sort of plateauing, and then something happens and it sort of sends us down.
Yeah.
And then we sort of plateau and send us down. And I think we were hypothesizing about Christmas.
Yeah.
Being here in the West and being interested in the Christmas holidays, you've got Thanksgiving as a real test before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And where people would normally fly all over the country to be together.
Yeah.
Knowing this year that there's a very good chance they will not.
Yeah.
So I think we have some big shifts in loneliness and the great sadness that we all carry with people that we miss. And yet we're trying to be productive at work. Maybe the shift is that productivity, first of all, is that I'm coping emotionally.
Yep.
So maybe one of the things we put on the table is emotional resilience. I'm certainly being asked far more as part of sort of the cultural change, can we put emotional resilience on the table? Have we got behavioural sort of coping mechanisms that will just help people just get through the day and the week?
Yeah, yeah. Melanie, I think if you think about, 2021, 22, 23, I think what we're going through right now, when we look at the workforce, I think it's going to, in some ways, benefit organizations, because if we were to broaden the term of engagement, right, or think a little bit more broadly around how we help the workforce, I think organizations and leadership, we would be able to prioritize and say, you know what, maybe we've really exhausted the 40-hour work week. Maybe we need to move to 32 hours, right? Have you ever supported a project and you get in your meeting cadence, right? You're meeting twice a day or once a day or 4 times a week or whatever. And, something important pops up, right? Maybe the executive sponsor is trying to make his daughter's game or something, or date night or something, right? What tends to happen? Hey, I have something personal. Hey, let's just connect next week, right? I think when we start talking about people's wellness, whether it's mental health or otherwise, I think what could happen is that we start prioritizing the work. We start looking at our routines and ask ourselves, do our routines still make sense, right?
I think you're absolutely right. I think organizations my experience at the moment is that organizations are avoiding those kinds of conversations because they are just standing back and going, let's see how this works out first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the things that we're seeing is, I think, certainly from a European, American and Australian perspective, is that the working week is changing, and that what we're seeing is almost a sort of slower start on a Monday, longer days through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and very much Friday afternoons is starting to, I think we saw this before COVID, it was starting to happen, but it's starting to come down. Mm-hmm. I was in a conversation with a very senior government official last week, and I was really depressed to hear them talking about, because I thought it was quite close-minded. They were very angry that that people were sending emails over the weekend because they felt that that was putting pressure on those people's teams. So it was coming from a good place, but it was a case of, we're going to ban that. And I thought, how short-sighted. I send emails on a weekend because I have to carve out 3 hours to take my dad to a medical appointment.
Yeah.
So earlier in the week, I might not have been available. Like on a Thursday afternoon, I'm not available. I'm still playing catch up on a Saturday morning. Please don't penalise me for that. Have personal responsibility. If you see one of my emails on a Saturday morning, well, hang on. If you don't want to be working weekends, you shouldn't be looking. So, and you certainly don't have to respond. So let's step back a minute and just say, because I think the short-sighted piece will be if you try to put constraints onto what that working week is going to be, because there is absolutely no way in a team of 6 that I'm currently working with. We've got parents, we've got parents of tiny tots, we've got parents of teenagers, we've got parents who've also got elderly parents to worry about and take to medical appointments. We've got people who have got flatmates and they're working around them. We've got people whose spouses are working from home. So for me to sort of try to dictate what the working week would look like is, at best, it feels tone deaf. Mm-hmm. So I think there is something there where we have to sort of step back and go, do you know what, the working hours, I think that's a big issue. I think for me, it's out there, we sort it out. But I think there's some bigger issues to the virtual world, which is how do I continue to build customer relationships when the proportion of customers that I have met face to face continues to dwindle over the next months into the years.
Yeah.
You know, I've been really keeping an eye on this myself, looking at my own consultancy sort of roster and looking at the customers who have been engaging me are customers that I've known. And I have to say, I'm slightly more excited by customers I have never met face to face.
Yeah.
Thinking, because that's an indicator for me that maybe I'm doing something right online, because this is the new world.
This is
when I'm counseling others to maybe develop this, I'm sort of saying that one of the things we had a big conversation with an organization I can't name today, where we were building effective virtual working. And one of the things we talked about is the fact, I said, if you've never met somebody, then you're going to have to put yourself more out there. But I said, doesn't that start with, let's take LinkedIn, for example. You have to be putting yourself out into the marketplace. You have to be doing more self-promotion. You have to let people know that you have thoughts worth listening to. So actually, it starts with an investment in, you know, there's not everybody would see themselves as a thought leader, but I'm now challenging them to say, you're a subject matter expert at work. Now you need to start telling people that. LinkedIn, I'm not talking about Facebook, I'm not talking about Instagram, but I am sort of saying LinkedIn is the professional network, so maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to start doing that. If you do it, you become sort of a magnetic force that people want to come towards. If you can't go and find them, you're going to have to set yourself up as a powerful magnet where people come towards you. Now, I think, again, we just scratched the surface of that.
Yeah, Melanie, you are hitting on something that is very real. Launching the ChangeNerd community over the last 2 years, it feels weird at first, putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, but it becomes something beautiful over time. Me and you we've connected a number of times, right? And you're on the other side of the world, and it's almost like you create. And this is, me and Stephanie talk about it all the time. It's almost like career insurance, but you create a whole network online, and so if you're independent, you can depend on this network for gig work. If you're looking for a full-time role, you can network online and hopefully find another role. But it's there's some really, really good benefits, and just with ChangeNerd, with customers that we talk to, the relationship is so close that we may put a calendar invite, right, out there, but we're actually talking, via text message, or they'll just call my phone, right? Because we're that close. And I'm making my son lunch and they're doing something with their kids and we're still talking business, right? Like, so there's some great, I think, long-term benefits to, changing the way we look at our careers and how we advertise and things of
And
that.
I think that maybe some of us who've had a more independent career have got an advantage, that we're used to doing this because it's a key part. You've built the ChangeNerd community.
Mm-hmm.
I've been leading the Change Management Institute in the UK. I'm now transitioning out of that, and I've founded the Continuous Change community, which is about how we deal with multiple, constant, continuous change.
Exactly.
But we're used to building these communities.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm finding is now a subject that organizations maybe are thinking about getting better at, is how do we mobilize our staff who are not necessarily on the front line of sales, but how do we mobilize those staff to actually put themselves out there a little bit more, to advertise that we as an organization, have skills, but also for them to build their network. And it does worry me that a lot of people who are permanent employees within organizations, there is less impetus for them to do this, and they think it's an additional burden, whereas people who are contractors, who are temporary and independent, are often doing it automatically.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that, if expos are dead, if conferences are dead, and this is what I keep talking to these permanent employees about, is that, you might normally go to a conference at least once a year and you would network with your peers in other organizations. How are you going to do that now? That's another challenge that we have to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that really, this is about personal choice, and it's a change in behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about encouraging that change in behavior. And I'm working now with a chief executive who I'm sort of saying he's almost as guilty as his staff, because he's not really out there at all. And I'm saying, right, if I can't get you out there, I can't get your staff out there. So this is about the role modeling, deliberate, focused, exhibiting what you want others to do in a very public way.
Yeah.
So I don't think change management's changed that much. I think that maybe the changes I'm being asked to implement are a bit of a stretch for people. But I'll conclude this sort of interview by saying maybe one of the things we ought to put on the agenda as well is that some people are saying change management has changed. And the reason they are saying that is that on the optimistic side, we have made progress in the technical agenda that was going to take us 3 years, and it's only taken us 3 months. So on the upside, there's an awful lot of people who have felt so empowered because they have evidence that their organization is capable of change and capable of change at pace. So they're really excited. On the other side, I hear change professionals who are being told the message, we don't need you anymore. We've proved that we can change ourselves. So why do we need to be managed through the change? Change just happens, doesn't it? So I think that actually what's happened is that there's a golden opportunity, but also a threat, for us to get the value of properly managed changes into the boardroom. We need to be talking about how properly managed change can reduce risk, increase return on investment.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, there's going to be this use of the examples of we changed quickly. We don't need change management. So I think we face an interesting and unexpected and certainly unasked for challenge in our profession, which is we can go either way. Organizations will see as an unnecessary additional sort of cost, almost like sometimes internal audit and compliance functions are sort of seen as like any best practice could be seen in this way. Or we can do the other way, which is actually, you've shown you can change, we can help you. pick the right changes and to mobilize that effort in the right direction so that you get even greater return on investment.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think I do think we need to shift the way we develop change management talent. And whenever, like, in a change or community, we always talk about just being very, very business oriented. It's not about it's not about change management. It's about what type of outcomes are you trying to drive, right? And then,
Yeah.
then you can talk about the people infrastructure and getting them ready and things of that nature. But it starts with the business problem, So I think there are additional conversations that me and you can have about how to get there, and it might lay some groundwork for future courses and things of that nature. So yeah, no, our industry is strong, but I do think that we need to stay 3 steps ahead of the business,
Yeah,
so
I definitely think so. And I think, yeah, we should touch base in a few months and see where the next shift is, because I do think that this is something that's shifting every few months. But I think that one message I'll leave everyone with, which is I'm working all over the world in all sorts of industries, and nobody's got a simple answer to a lot of the impacts of COVID and working from anywhere and losing the society that we are so used to. So I think whatever you're trying to do in your own organizations, from the outside perspective, look at all the different examples, read as widely as you can, keep thinking and keep questioning, are we doing the right thing? And don't be afraid to experiment with things. It is truly an agile change at this point.
Yeah,
and therefore just keep experimenting.
absolutely. Melanie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for this virtual summit. And you were right. I see behind you, it got darker in Spain.
Yeah, it's nighttime now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And just for the viewers, Melanie, where can people find you?
Well, if you just type Melanie Franklin into LinkedIn, trust me, you'll find me having a good hair day rather than today. And you're just connect with me. I'm a very open connector. And if you want to look at the Continuous Change community, which is just a free group on LinkedIn where I'm posting content, have a look on there as well.
Absolutely. All right, Melanie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.